Hello and welcome to Talkin Reptiles with myself, Mark Perpetua of Reptile Encounters, and my friends at Hudson Valley Reptile and Rescue. Today we have another lizard species in our spotlight, and this is the green iguana. For a long time, green iguanas were readily available in the pet trade, but when we look at their natural history, we'll see that trying to meet their needs in captivity can bring with it many challenges. First of all, they live in tropical environments. They require heat and high humidity, and meeting that in captivity is not always easy. Their natural habitat is found from Mexico through Central America and into South America. And they can live in a variety of forest habitats, but they're largely considered a rainforest inhabitant, which is where that high humidity comes in. Another thing to consider about iguanas is how big they get. This is a young one. He's only 2 years old, but they are going to grow, if they're females, about 4 feet long. And if that sounds big, the males get even larger. A large male can be nearly 6 feet in length. Now, they do have a long tail, and that makes up about 2/3 of their length. And that means a 6-foot iguana is going to have about a 4-foot long tail. But the other challenge is finding a cage big enough to house a 6-foot long lizard. And also notice he's on a branch to feel comfortable. Iguanas are climbers. They live high in the trees and the rainforest canopies, and they need that type of environment to feel happy and comfortable in captivity. So we're talking about a full-grown iguana needing a closet converted into a cage. Something to give it room to stretch out, but something to give it height for climbing. One of the appeals of an iguana in captivity, however, is they're vegetarians. You don't need a freezer full of mice or go collecting insects or bringing cockroaches into your house to feed them. A trip to the produce section is normally where you're going to get their food. In the wild, they eat a variety of tropical fruits, leaves, and flowers. One of the favorites in captivity, if you have one available, is hibiscus flowers, but that's probably going to get a little expensive after a while. I find that rich leafy greens along with chopped yellow squash. All my iguanas have always loved yellow squash, colorful vegetables like shaved carrots, and don't forget some nutritious vegetables like green beans and broccoli are the kind of things they're going to require to give them the vitamins and minerals they need in a vegetarian diet. While fruits are accepted, like us, fruits are merely a treat. Most fruits have a lot of sugar in them and should not be the biggest part of their diet. This guy loves bananas and strawberries, but they're given a little bit more sparingly, only a couple times a week in small quantities, just to round out his diet. As a vegetarian, one of the things he's not getting a good supply of is vitamin D. And that means he's going to require UV light. In his forest habitat, they spend a lot of time basking out in the sun. And that's not just to warm their bodies since they live in hot environments, that's also to absorb that needed UV light. And certain chemicals that they're getting in their diet from plants will be converted in a chemical process in their skin into vitamin D, which is really important for them to be able to utilize calcium properly, making strong bones. One of the biggest things you'll see with many young iguanas in captivity is a curve in the jaw or even misshapen limbs. If those bones aren't strong, they become deformed under pressures as the animal grows, and we call that MBD, which stands for metabolic bone disease. So the best way to combat that, or better yet, prevent it all along, is to provide them with UV light. So space, caging size, and heat and UV requirements make the setup for an iguana extremely costly in the long run. But I also want to point out some other things that make iguanas a little tougher to keep in captivity, especially with the males. Number one, males can be territorial. You never want to keep two big males together or they will become combative and fight, and one can be seriously injured. The other thing to realize is sometimes that territoriality will be turned on a human. And a young 2-year-old like this, which is really relaxed hanging out with us today, once he goes through maturing and goes through his reptilian puberty, iguanas are known for producing some of the highest amounts of testosterone. And testosterone is not only a male hormone associated with reproduction, but it's the one that produces aggression and causes the territoriality, especially in the breeding season. So many iguana owners have found their once gentle young iguana can become more aggressive, and they can give dangerous bites. Even though he's a vegetarian, he's got really sharp, pointed teeth. Many of the leaves they might feed on have a leathery texture. Many of the fruits that they bite into require a very strong bite with very sharp teeth. So don't let the fact that he's a vegetarian make you think that he's a gentle giant. Can he be? Absolutely, but like all reptiles, that requires a lot of time and a lot of patience as you develop that relationship. And since this guy's young, he is still learning to trust me. And while he's really well behaved right now, he does have his moments. And the last concern to look out for is those claws. I got a few scratches on my skin just trying to convince him to settle down, as he was a little rambunctious when he first came out of his hot cage in order to film today's video. And those claws require trimming every now and then, or you're going to experience lots and lots of scratches. Not like a cat, they don't use their claws as a weapon, but in their attempt to squirm away and grab a hold of something to pull free of your grip if he's uncomfortable, those claws can dig in. Finally, remember that tail? 2/3 of the body length. A 6-foot iguana with a 4-foot tail also has a 4-foot whip. And if he doesn't feel comfortable when you approach him in the cage, he might decide to use that tail as a whip. And a 4-foot tail can definitely leave a welt. But one more interesting fact while we got the iguana out is, even as big and tough as they sound, they do have to escape many, many predators. Birds of prey, wild cats like jaguars in the southern part of Mexico, Central and South America, might decide to prey on even a larger iguana. So they have this really neat escape mechanism. Often they're basking out over a river and they'll just dive right in and swim. And in a last-ditch attempt, if something were to try to grab them by their tail pops off. It's called caudal autotomy. And because that tail is so important as a balancer in the trees, as a weapon of self-defense, as a whip, and as an escape mechanism again in the future, he is going to regenerate a tail. And I'm not sure what happened to this iguana. I'm not its original owner, but he fully regenerated a tail, and we can tell that because the new tail never grows back all of its original features. Normally the banding on an iguana's tail goes all the way to the end, as well as the small spikes on their back. And the fact that right here where my finger is pointing, we see kind of a line of demarcation. The spikes end, the banding ends, and he's got this beautiful uniform orange color going all the way down, which shows me that's a regenerated tail. He was well taken care of by his original owner, and sometimes accidents happen, especially in smaller cages. I've seen iguanas wrap their tails around a branch while climbing if they don't have enough room, or sometimes cage decoration, if it's not secure, can fall on an animal. So these are all things that need to be considered, not just with an iguana, but any reptile, to prevent injury. So yeah, our species highlight today is the green iguana. They'll always hold a special spot in my heart because that was my first pet. 10 years old, that would have been 1978, well before the internet and all the information we have today. And if my father had known what we were in for, probably would never have recommended an iguana as a pet for a 10-year-old. Great lizards to work with, but definitely not a beginner pet. Make sure you do your research and keep watching more episodes of Talkin' Reptiles in order for you to figure out which one is going to best suit your lifestyle and your home. Thanks for watching.